Good.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to the Breaking Edge podcast. My name is Josh Ferguson. Today we're sitting down with Dorathy Wright. And so I don't know, I know you like tangentially, I don't know you super well, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. But I asked you to come on the show because you're going to Paris soon.
Yeah.
And why are you going to Paris?
I'm going to Paris for Fashion Week.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just such a unexpected thing for someone from Normal Wells to be doing for me.
Yeah.
And so how'd you get into fashion? Tell me the story.
Well, do you want like the far back
Yeah.
story?
Where'd you get inspired?
So I've sewn for like most of my life since I was like really little. And then when we moved to Norman Wells, like I had just Hope at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make all of her clothing, right?
Okay.
When I lived in Inuvik, I did, it was called Healthy Babies, and I learned how to do certain traditional clothing from like where I'm from in Inuvik in the Delta. And I wanted to continue making my children traditional clothing from like my Gwich'in culture, right?
Okay.
And then I used to quilt a lot. And so I started quilting, and then people were like, oh, can I buy that? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then
So how old were you when you kind of started to sell things?
So probably like 29 or 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I started selling more and more things, and then I was like doing a little bit of research online, and I looked up ITI and the seed funding that they have, and I messaged Nikki Richards, and I was like, hey, do I qualify for this? Like, I mean, it's just sewing. Like, I wasn't sure.
No big deal.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. And then she was like, yes, you should. Like, this is something that you can access. So I wrote a proposal. It was like a 1-pager.
Just get her done.
And yeah, I was like, at first I didn't really know what I was getting into. And then I was like, okay, so let's just write this, and sent it off, and they gave me a grant. I got like, I think it was like $5,000. So
Yep.
I bought a bunch of materials and a new sewing machine, and I just got to work.
That's sweet.
And it just kind of snowballed from there. And then I'm like now like teaching all over. Started teaching in Norman Wells, and then I went to Delaney, and that was a huge hit. And then I went to the Yukon, and it just blew up. And so now I'm teaching all over the Yukon and the Northwest Territories, and then I had the opportunity to go to it's called IFA. It's Indigenous Fashion Art in Toronto.
Okay.
And the lady, her name is Sage Paul. So I did a bunch of stuff there. And then they invited me to Milan a few years ago, all expenses paid, like just to be a mentee, just to go and see how things kind of work in the fashion industry and the behind the scenes and designing and stuff like that. And it was so cool. It was such a great opportunity. And then a friend of mine, who I met through Entrepreneur, which is like a organization out of Yellowknife that kind of fosters entrepreneurs, like Indigenous entrepreneurs in the North, in the circumpolar North. So I was part of that a few years ago. It was cohort 3, I believe, the fashion cohort.
Okay.
And there was 4 women from the Yukon, 3 from the Northwest Territories, and 4 from Nunavut.
Okay.
So through that, I like learned so much more about business and about fashion and like networking, and it has just opened up so many doors.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I got to go to Iqaluit just to go and speak about like, you know, my journey and and my business and how I became, you know, like, or what I'm doing now.
Yeah, for sure.
Take that out.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
So no, it was really a great experience to go to Iqaluit and just like talk to all like a bunch of other entrepreneurs and just tell them my story on like, you know, how it started and, you know, like.
Yeah. Okay. So when did your mom teach you how to sew?
Yeah, my mom and my aunties and my grandma. And like I said, I went to, this program in Inuvik called Healthy Babies when Hope was born.
Okay.
And my Auntie Brenda taught me how to make a parka, and she's passed on now.
Okay.
But yeah, I still have the original parka that I made for Hope, and then it went through all of my daughters. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about, you know, your childhood and kind of getting into sewing, like way back when.
I don't really remember. I just kind of was always very, I want to say like crafty, and I always wanted to like make things.
Did your parents like foster that in you?
Oh yeah, my mom definitely.
Yeah.
And very creative. My family is very creative. My sister is an artist. She paints, and my dad actually has taken up painting for like the last few years too, and they're
awesome.
like really good. Yeah.
What kind of painting?
Like
Like watercolors
landscapes.
or
No, like I don't know.
acrylics?
Maybe
Oils?
not oils, not oils, but like I don't know exactly.
That's really cool. My
yeah.
my parents are artists as well, so I come
Okay.
from an artistic background.
Yeah, no, I come from a family of artists. Like my aunties, they all sew and they're all very creative.
And is this mostly like traditional, like like using furs and
definitely.
stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, how would you describe your like style?
Like I said, I'm from the Delta, so it's like the parkas that I make are all like kind of Delta style parkas.
Okay. What is that? I have no idea what that is.
It's just like, do you see my parka there? That's called a Delta style parka,
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's just the way that you like it's designed, like the pockets and everything.
Did you make
like
that one?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, because my other jacket that I bought from a store ripped, and like I wasn't like. I was like, I can't be walking around looking like this with a big hole in my jacket. I was like, I better make myself a parka. And that was the first thing that I actually made myself in all the years that I've been doing this. That's like the first parka I've ever made myself.
That's awesome. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
And then, so for Fashion Week, like, what are you showing off?
So
like, is there a runway?
Yeah, there's a runway. Yeah, I haven't. And I just did another interview the other day, and they were asking me the same kind of question, and she was like, "Oh, so what is your like? What are the designs?" And I'm like, I haven't even made them yet, but I know what I want to do, and I don't really like draw them out first. I usually just like see the fabric. I have to like touch it and see it, and like put things kind of side by side, and be like, okay, I think this is gonna look really nice, and then I just go from there.
So you're going next week?
No, I'm going. I'm teaching a class.
Oh, this
is.
I thought you were going to Paris in like 2 days.
No, God. No.
You're like, I haven't made them yet. I was like, oh my God, you better hurry up.
When I went to LA, I literally was in Edmonton for like 2 days, and I was sewing the entire time. And then I got to literally like 3 things that I made in for LA were done like the day before.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, again, the kind of what I see in my mind when I think of runways is like really like kind of bizarre, what I would consider bizarre, like fashion statements and like weird dresses and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
So like,
no, it wouldn't be anything like that.
okay. Well, you went to Fashion Week in Paris, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what the other designers will be doing, but
Sure.
like this would be more like what I make, like the traditional parkas and like covers and that kind of thing. Right?
Okay. Well, and is there any issue with you kind of bringing the furs and whatnot across the border?
No, I think that I don't work a whole lot with seal.
Okay.
But I think that is the only one that is kind of banned in many countries.
Okay.
But I have a friend that is actually coming with me. Her name is May, and I can't pronounce her last name.
Okay.
But she does a lot of sealskin. Like that's her traditional, like her signature look, right? She was in New York with me as well. She did the New York show too, and then she was in Winnipeg with me in November.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she's also trying to come to Paris at the same time at the same show. So she was asking the same questions, and I think that you just have to do like a bunch of paperwork and and like
I swear I'm not trafficking seal kind of thing.
You're not allowed to sell it. You're allowed to display it. So it'd be like that kind of thing, right?
Okay.
So when we went to Milan too, there was a designer from Inuvik who brought like these really nice sealskin earrings, and they had like a really long piece of sealskin. And I think she had to do like a whole bunch of paperwork just to bring them into the country. And it was like a whole lot, like a whole process, right? But yeah.
So can you talk about what you're planning on making for Paris, or is that like secretly under wraps? Like,
like I said, it's all up here. I don't know. But I definitely want to like traditional, modern, and like the wow factor, because again, it is Paris. Like New York was really great, and I had oh my God, it was so amazing there, and I had like a bunch of really nice stuff, and one of them that I made 2 parkas while I was in New York as well. I found a little place like that rented sewing machines, so I
sweet.
went there every day and sewed. So I don't really know exactly
what a designer does on their visit to New York. Just rents a sewing machine.
This one lady, I can't remember where I was teaching. Oh, it was in the Yukon. She was like, "What do you do for fun?" And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I sew.
Sewing is sweet. I actually did a bunch of sewing in university. was kind of got into making like technical gear. So I made a couple jackets and like backpacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With like Cordura and different materials like that. And there was like a brief period of time where I was like, maybe I'll go into like outdoor gear, technical design or whatever.
Big market for that.
Yeah, I know, but it's also
Seriously.
insanely competitive, and
Yeah.
I just didn't have it in me. I was just like, no, I'm good.
No.
And then I bailed. And it's funny because at that point, I think Leanna would have considered me a better like sewer than her.
Yeah.
And so now, even to this day, she'll like ask me questions about her sewing machine, and I'm like, I have no idea. That's so cool. Okay, so how has your like style evolved in terms of? I'm sure traveling to these shows and whatnot has impacted kind of the way that you see fashion, possibly.
Yeah. So going back to IFA, the first year that I had sent, this was a long time ago. The first year that I had sent some stuff, and this was, I think, through like COVID.
Okay.
Some of the stuff didn't make the show, and I was like, I questioned. I was like, why? Why not? And they're like, oh, because it's not finished. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not finished? It's completed.
Yeah, what was wrong
And they were
with
like, oh no, the seams have to be like perfect. Like everything has to be run through like a professional machine, like a
serger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh wow, okay. So I took that, and I was like, so now every time when I'm teaching, I'm like, it has to be professional. It has to look like it came from a store or something like that, right? So,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so how many machines do you have at home now?
I don't know. How many do I have home?
Yeah, at home.
I
Like a
think,
serger.
like the number of machines I have.
Sure.
I think I have like maybe 16 here.
Oh my
I probably
God.
have like about 16 in the Yukon. I have one in
You have
Yellowknife.
16 in the Yukon.
Yeah.
Got like warehouses with sewing machines all
I
over
have
the
like a
place.
storage unit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
when I go there, I just have everything kind of
in the Yukon.
in the Yukon. I have like a storage unit, and then I just rent a vehicle and then drive to wherever.
Okay.
And yeah.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. So you must have a pretty serious setup at your house.
No, no, not really. Well, I have like my kitchen table, and I just
Okay.
sit there and sew. And then like my kids all do that too. So like every now and then I'll just hear my sewing machine going. I'm like, what the heck? And there's Hopi like sitting there like making something.
That's
I'm
so
like,
cool.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And then even the baby, like she's like 8 years old now. She's been sewing since she was like 4. But she really likes beading. But like she does a lot of sewing too, and so does Cam and Grace. Not so much, but Grace just does what.
So are parkas like your thing, or what would be your staple like item?
Yeah, I guess a parka. I like doing covers as well because they're super easy.
What's a cover?
Just like a pullover.
Oh.
Yeah. I think in Uvalua call them a mountie, or not a mountie. Sorry. I don't know the name.
Okay.
I take that out. But yeah, so yeah, signature one would probably be parkas, and I really like making little like kid parkas. They're
Okay.
super easy to make, and it takes like a couple hours. So.
You can make a parka in a couple hours.
Yeah.
That's really fast.
I could make a parka in like 6 hours, maybe. Like, and with the fur, I mean, it's just all like an assembly line in my head.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
what the next steps are. I
For
know
sure.
what to do, right?
That's super cool. And what other materials do you use other than furs?
Well, like I said, I do use some sealskin. I really like working with seals. Actually, I love hand sewing. I just did a class with the Landcorp the other day, and Jasmine. I learned how to make a trapper hat, and I made it for myself. And then I was going to make one for Hope, and I tried it on, and it was a little too small. I was like, well, I guess Hope's getting this one. But I just sat there, and like I had a really stressful day, and I was just like, oh my God. So I just sat there, and I just sewed, and it's just like so calming. And hand sewing, it just kind of brings it back to very traditional.
So did you learn how to hand sew like first and then move to a machine? Or?
Yeah, I guess I did when I was younger. I actually prefer using a sewing machine, but like hand sewing is like really good too. I learned how to hand.
I think they're so different. They're almost different practices.
Yeah,
you know.
But I learned how to do a lot of like the mitt making in like again Healthy Babies in Inuvik. And what was I gonna say? The hand sewing and then sewing. Just hold on a second. I just gotta.
You're good. Take your time.
What was I gonna say about that?
We asked if you learned how to hand sew first.
Oh, yes, but like traditional hand sewing, there was something about like the seal that I was going to talk about. I can't remember.
That's okay.
Let's just move on.
So give me a sense of what your childhood was like and what your parents were like.
My parents are amazing. They put up with a lot of my shit. When I was younger, I was kind of, No, my mom is awesome. She lives in Inuvik with her husband, and my dad lives in Fort McPherson with his wife.
Okay.
I don't know. They're really great. Like, I had a really great childhood. It was awesome.
And you grew up in Inuvik?
I grew up in Inuvik for the most part. And then when I was a teenager, I started to travel. And then when I was like a young adult, I started traveling more and more. And I've been like all over.
Traveling for what?
Just different like school trips, and then like vacations and stuff. I used to live in Ireland years ago.
Ireland?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I used to live in Ireland.
How long did you live in Ireland for?
For like a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because
the sewing machines in Ireland.
No. This was before sewing, but because so years ago, I used to work for a construction company, and I went to Barcelona one Christmas and New Year's to visit my best friend there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking in the streets of Europe, and I'm like, why do I live in the north where the cold hurts my face and it's like -50? And it was like, it was there. I just decided, I was like, I'm going to live in Europe. I'm going to move. So I decided that. And I
feel like if people say I'm going to go live in Europe, they don't go to Ireland. They go to like Spain.
Yeah. I'm not going back to Spain. That's for sure. But yeah, so I just decided I wanted to live in Europe. I was young and I had no kids at that time. So I wanted to.
How old were you?
I think it was like 24, 25.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. So you moved to Ireland.
Yeah. So, it didn't just happen like that. I did a lot of research online, and I found this program it's called swap.ca, and it's like kind of like a safety net for young adults that want to travel. And it's like they help get with the visa, they help find social events for you to like network, but like meet other. You're
not just alone.
No, you're not alone. They help you find a job, help you find a place to stay, and so that's
so cool. What was your favorite part about living in Ireland? The rain? Or?
Can I say the pints?
Yeah, of course you can say the pints.
The weather was kind of crazy, yeah, for sure. But like I really liked the scenery. It was so green. Everything is green everywhere.
Because of all the rain.
The people are like super friendly and nice. And
did you develop a little bit of an Irish accent?
I probably did. Yes. And I've been back there a bunch of times, and my kids have been there twice.
Oh, that's so cool.
We traveled there a couple years ago. And we're going back again in April.
What was your day-to-day like when you were living there? Like, what were you working?
I was actually an au pair.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not.
There you go.
Yeah.
Full circle.
And I have a family that I worked for there, and I still am in contact with them.
So you were hanging out with kids and then would travel on the weekends?
I would just travel all over. I would go to like Northern Ireland. I would go to the like County Kerry. I would go to Galway or Limerick. I have a friend who actually I met in Nunavik was living in Limerick, and I didn't even know it. I was like,
oh my God,
I said something about Ireland. She's like, I'm here. Oh my God, I'm in Limerick. Come and visit. I'm like, oh my God. So that was fun. Yeah, it was really good. And then I went to like Portugal. I went to Spain. London sucks. It was so expensive.
What is it about traveling that really captures you?
No, I just can't sit still. I just always gotta be moving. Yeah. I just really like traveling.
I feel like sewing matches that character trait where you have to be moving all the time. Because if you're at home, you're like, I got to be doing something. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. And so like with sewing, I can't believe that, it's bringing me out to all these different places.
No
like
kidding.
I said, I was in New York in February, and my show was actually on my birthday. So that was pretty cool. And I loved New York. I think I could live there. I would totally live there.
New York's a crazy place.
It is. Yeah. It is. And I'm like, a few people are like, oh my God, aren't you scared? I'm like, why would I be scared? Like I freaking love this.
It's like
place.
any
It's
place.
amazing.
If you go to the wrong places, it can be sketchy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But like you can be smart about it and it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People who are like, oh, aren't you scared of like living so remotely? Like, and it's like, well, no, like, I don't know. It's not scary.
Yeah.
It's just different from what you would know.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a question. I had something else that I was going to say. So when you first started going to these like fashion shows, was that like, did you experience like imposter syndrome at all or whatnot? Like, do you know what that is?
Yeah, no.
Oh, imposter syndrome is like if you're working in an industry and then like sometimes I have imposter syndrome when I'm like doing the podcast or doing videography or whatnot. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm qualified to do what I'm doing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. Probably I felt that before I started this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't know if I could, like, I never thought that I would be a fashion designer.
Totally.
I would never think that, like, this stuff would be runway material type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought about it, and like I said, a friend of mine had mentioned this New York show, and I was like, maybe I could do that. And then I was like, my stuff would probably, it might be over. And then I reached out to the lady in New York, and she's like, actually, we have a whole bunch of Canadian Indigenous designers that are coming, and we're promoting the whole day to them.
Oh, so cool.
And so it was like, I think it was a little easier knowing that, like that was going to be kind of highlighted.
Yeah.
And so when I got there, I was just like, I just took it all in. I just knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be kind of represented, like the different looks and the different models, and it all turned out just amazing. Yeah.
So how does one of these things function? Like what is the event? I have no idea. So enlighten me.
So the one that was reaching out for quite a while, actually, like, so when I went to New York, then there's a bunch of people that messaged me, like lots of models message and on Instagram or whatever.
Like, I want to walk your parkas down the runway.
Yeah. Well, they want the experience and they want to like walk for you, right? And so this it's called Paris Fashion Air in Paris. They reached out a bunch of times. They wanted me to go in September and I just wasn't ready. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll do it in March. And then I reached out to them and I said, maybe I could come in March. And they said, yeah. And I have a bunch of friends that are models. And then when I went to Winnipeg, I met a couple more ladies there. And the one lady, she was like, oh, if you ever do New York again, let me know. I would love to come. And I was like, well, actually, I'm thinking about Paris. And she was like, I would love to come. And so I was like, okay. Cool. And then I have a friend in the Yukon who models for Manitoba. And she modeled one of the parkas that I helped design with her. Like I went to Carcross Yukon and we made the parka together and she wore it. And it's huge. Like everybody loves it. And I reached out to her and I asked her if she wanted to come. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So like, there's this whole thing where like I reached out to a bunch of people that I wanted and we have like a little group chat now. And there's like, I think there's like 6 or 7 and they're all Indigenous models that are going to come from Canada and one lady from the US.
Oh, all the way to walk
to
for
Paris.
you.
Yeah, just to walk for me.
That's so cool.
So it's pretty cool. The lady actually she's from North Dakota. We put a call out when I was in New York because we had one piece that was like a little big, like a bigger size, and we didn't have a model that would fit it properly.
Yeah.
And so we put a call out, and she answered, and she was like, "I'll be there tomorrow." And so she flew herself from North Dakota to New York, put herself up just to walk in the show, and it fit her perfectly. It was so nice, and I had like this other cover that looked amazing on her, and then she went to my show in LA. And now she's going to probably come to Paris with us.
So the day, is it a multi-day fashion show?
No, it's just my show would just be one day. Like, it's not a whole day.
Okay,
but
it's like the part that you're participating in.
It's a multi-day one.
Whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
So like when you show up, there's like all these designers and all these models and
yes.
I guess, are there brands there too?
Yeah, there's different. Well, like my brand is called Willow Crescent by Dorathy Wright, and then there'd be other brands there as well. So going back to the fashion house that asked me, or not the fashion house, the fashion show that asked me to go.
Yeah.
I did say like I would like to bring my own models because I would like a Indigenous representation on the runway in Paris. And they said, well, we have a specific look and we want to see who you're bringing. And so I sent them, a few photos and they were like, absolutely not. We're not having any plus size models on the runway. And a lot of like, none of them, like not all of the models are size 0 to 4 that I chose or whatever. So I was like, well, I'm sorry, then maybe this isn't for me. Like I want to kind of stay true to like, I want to be more inclusive to like everybody, like all different sizes, right? Sure. So I was like, maybe not. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe you should try Paris City Fashion Week. So
this was a different show that asked you to come.
So the first Paris Fashion Air, they wanted me to come, and then I told them I wanted to bring my own models.
Yeah, and they said,
well, they said yes, you can, but not this, this, models. And this. And I'm just like, well, that's kind of stupid. But anyway, and then they were like, well, you can try this fashion show. And they're like the second biggest fashion show in Paris.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, absolutely. You could do whatever you want type of thing, right?
You will soon be the first biggest fashion show in Paris. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, day one rolls around and there's, I guess you have a time slot where your models walk.
Yeah.
For the rest of the time, are you observing? Are you sewing? Like
no. So I probably won't be sewing while I'm there. I probably have everything prepared beforehand. But I'll go probably a few days before because jet lag is no joke.
Totally.
And so like I said, I probably have 6 or 7 models that are like supposed to come with me. Hopefully like all the funding comes through for them or if they fundraise or whatever. But I'll have to pick other models. So I have 12 looks that I can do.
Okay.
And so
That's a
I'll
lot.
probably, yeah, it is. Probably
Is
have
that
to find
more than normal? Is that about
about
average?
10 to 12 is
Okay.
pretty normal. And so, yeah, I'll be in Paris for a few days, and then I could choose models from their agency. And then I think we do like kind of a walkthrough.
Like rehearsals. And
Yeah,
stuff like that?
and then my models will definitely have to do that just because like they've never been to this show before.
They have
and
to
like
learn how to do it.
Yeah, and if it's like I want to say like a multi-room runway, not just like a walkway, then they'll have to kind of learn that, right?
Okay.
So
it might be like many rooms and there's observers
haven't
around
seen
and
the
they walk
venue.
through.
Yeah, it might
Okay.
be like that's what it was at the WAG.
Okay.
And so it was a little bit of a bigger runway type of thing, right?
Totally.
So
So then what kind of opportunities does this afford? Like, is it the kind of thing where you go to a fashion show and then there might be someone who wants to buy a design? Or is it the kind of thing where they're like,
Yeah.
it gets more fashion shows?
Well, it'll get more fashion shows probably. But what I kind of want and what I envision like while I'm there is
Put it out there.
I want. I did reach out to them and I asked like, are there going to be buyers there?
Mm-hmm.
And
Just to clarify, are buyers individuals or are buyers
like
brands?
buyers are brands and stores.
Okay.
So I asked if there was going to be buyers there from a specific region, like, circumpolar, because
Sure.
like the parkas that I make are, not only
They're not
stylish,
gonna-
they're practical. Like
Sure.
they're meant for this type of weather that we live in. Right.
Yeah.
So, they did get back to me and they said that their show is like 8,000 people come to their show every year type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there could be buyers from all over. And I would really like to kind of break into the market.
Totally.
Like in the circumpolar of the world, I guess I would say, or like,
Well, if
wherever.
you're making parkas, probably they're not going to pop off in like Mexico.
I had a show in Mexico.
Oh, yeah?
And it did really good.
That's
Yeah,
cool. That's
actually. Well, I
awesome.
didn't send any parkas, but I did send
Totally.
like a bunch of other stuff. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the idea, and like a lot of networking. It's really great, like to go out there and then just talk to a bunch of different people because you never know what's going to happen.
I couldn't agree more. You
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah.
And it's always worth, like, that's one thing that I've come to appreciate in terms of running my own business. And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you feel the same way, is like, you can't really put a constraint on how big or how, like, where you imagine your business could go. You
Yeah,
know what
well,
I mean?
I had no idea that this, like, just starting off, like I said, like a small little, like, I mean, it wasn't little, $5,000 is a lot of money, and that really helped me. But like starting off the way that I did and then building up and like reinvesting in yourself and reinvesting in your business and just buying more and more equipment or more material or, a better sewing machine
Totally.
or, more sewing machines to teach and those types of things. And you just build yourself up and then,
What advice would you have to someone? Because I know that there's a lot of, well, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the North or, in smaller communities that think about maybe starting their own business, but it's really scary.
Yeah.
And I think you're an awesome example of a success story in terms of what seed funding can do.
Yeah.
And I got I didn't start my business with seed funding, but I like bumped it with
Yeah.
funding, and it really, really helped. It helped me buy the computer that I do all my work on. So, kind of what is the mentality that you would tell someone else? Like, hey, like, this is kind of how I would approach starting your own business.
Yeah. So what, like a sewing business
Or whatever.
anything?
I think it's kind of applicable
Like
across the
general.
board. Right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I have I don't know. Let's start that over again.
Sure. You got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. I just don't know. I don't even know where to begin because like, it's this business is so like, I don't know. I have a few years of experience for sure, just running my own business.
For sure.
Like I've been doing this for 10 years.
And hey,
on
you
my
can't
own.
screw this up. Like,
Yeah.
it's basically like I asked for your candid thoughts, and if
Yeah.
you don't have to have prepared anything. Just
No.
tell me what
Yeah.
you think. Like,
Yeah. So like when I started my small business, I was like very, I didn't think that it was going to be like huge, right? Like, or anything bigger than what it was. And I just like, I just started thinking like, oh, well, maybe if I did this, it might be better. Or like, and I had the mentality of like, the worst they could say is no. So
That's a good point.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to try this. And, if they don't like it, they don't like it, whatever. Right. Like,
you can't take your failures too much to heart.
yeah, exactly. And so when I went out and started, like, let's say, for example, teaching, like, it was like a whole new thing for me, but I was like, I found different techniques, different ways that like it worked better for me or whatever. So for like the business thing, I think that like just starting and just doing it and going with it is just like the best advice. Like you can't be scared of anything. Like what's the worst that's going to happen?
Well,
right?
especially is like you don't have to do it as your only thing.
Yeah.
You can start your business while you're working.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time.
Yeah, I did it a different way. So I left my husband like I think like 9 years ago.
Okay.
And I have 4 kids, and I found out that I was pregnant like a week after I left him, and I was like, oh great, nice, this is awesome. That's the best thing that ever happened though. She's like the missing piece to my puzzle. She's like the crazy one. And so I had to work, I had to hustle, I had to like make sure that we had everything that we needed, right? I wanted my kids to have a very nice, comfortable life and a safe home and like all of those things. So I had to do what I had to do.
And was your sole source of income your business?
Was my business,
okay.
yeah. So whatever I needed, I knew I needed to make money, and so sewing has provided so much for us and for my family, and like it's been such a blessing. And I'm just like, I don't know how my hands know how to do this. That's what I was gonna say about the hand sewing. Yeah. I'm like, how do I know how to do this? Like it's like all blood memory, right?
Yeah.
So it's just I think that's pretty cool too.
That's super, that's actually a really good point, because I was saying that you could do it while you're working. Yeah. But then, like my business as well, I didn't have another job, and I was like, this has to be the thing that works.
It has to work out.
And that's a really good motivator as well.
Yeah. So, and the one thing too about like, I mean, for my business, like what I like with the like teaching and stuff like that, what I really wanted to kind of like, I guess I say like foster or bring home to people was like, I'm giving you this skill, I'm teaching you how to do this, or like, do it like a certain way or better. Like, I want to give back, and like, so that
teach a man to fish.
Yeah, exactly. And like if I teach somebody how to sew something and they come home with the finished, they could sell that and make money for their family. And that's what I did, because like I didn't, like my ex-husband, I don't even know where he is. Like, take that out. I'm like, I just wanted to give like these skills to other people, because they're not like mine to like hold on to. Like, I'm not going to just like gatekeep and like keep all of these things to me, because like I want people to succeed. I want to build other, like, again, like single parents or single mothers, build them up and be like, here, you can do this too, because like I'm going to give you this tool, I'm going to give you the skill like to make something and be able to sell it, or like, to bring money home to your family.
Yeah, totally. And you can make you can sew and save money.
Yeah.
Right? Like making
that too. Yeah, for sure. And I don't like, I mean, in the North, like all of these traditional things, like a lot of them, I'm not saying we're lost. Like a lot of people, especially where I'm from.
But they need to be preserved.
And they need to be preserved, and they need to be like, in the Yukon, they used to have a factory, or not a factory, but like a parka industry there, and same in Inuvik and same in Aklavik. And, I'm not saying it died out. There's still a lot of women that do this, especially for their own families and stuff. And, but if I could teach you how to make a traditional parka, and that's your own design, and your hard work went into it, at the end of the class, you walk away and you feel so inspired and just like very
it's really
proud
empowering.
of yourself. Yeah, for sure.
Are one of your goals, your long-term goals, like would you like would it be really, is it a goal of yours? Sorry, let me rephrase. Is it a goal of yours to get one of your designs into production?
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about with networking in Paris. I would like to, I want to say break into like the market somehow with like the designs that I do on a bigger scale, right?
Totally.
Yeah. But also it would be really cool to keep that like because it's all handmade, like all the stuff is like everything is cut out by hand and then sewed and all that. I would really like for something to happen with, I could teach like say 6 people here and like have a little factory or something like that. You know what I mean? Or a little,
instead of having machines do it.
Instead of sending it to like Taiwan or like to wherever.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, I think that's just kind of like it's like obviously you can scale bigger with like manufacturing in that way, but again, it's kind of it might lose something about the quality of the parkas.
Yeah, for sure. Quality control.
Quality control. Cool. So is that one of your goals, to kind of start something like that here, or kind of see where it goes? Well,
we'll see where it goes. I'm not too sure how that would look.
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time. I would probably be able to do, not saying most of it by myself. I definitely would need a team to do that. I haven't thought of it like the grand.
Well, it can be kind of scary because
right?
once you involve other people, then it's like, are you going to do it right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that could be like, even with my business, like it's difficult to, unless I like hire someone who I know is way more skilled than me, but even sometimes they're not doing it in like the angle or the style that I would do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And like that's actually kind of difficult up here, is like in terms of making the videos and whatnot and trying to represent the clients. You kind of need to understand the sawtooth to represent the clients of the sawtooth well. And it's funny because sometimes people will be like, "Oh, just use some stock footage," and it's like there's no footage from up here. Like there's nothing online that looks like here, so that can be really challenging. But that's really cool.
I do have a few ladies that I take with me sometimes to different classes that I have taught, and they're very skilled.
Okay.
And they're like my assistants. So when I'm teaching a class, they're doing all the stuff behind the scenes, and I'm like just focusing more on teaching. It's a lot easier on me, and it makes the class more enjoyable.
Totally.
The atmosphere in there is just like, it's like really.
And
like,
are they from the Sawtooth region or the Delta?
No, so I have a friend. Her name is Lavina. She's actually an artist as well.
Okay.
She was here teaching some jewelry making a little while ago. So she's been my assistant for I think about a year now. Actually, it was really funny because I called her up and I was like kind of in a bind, and I had a class that I knew I needed some help with, and I called her up, and I think she's like in Ontario or something, or she's from Iqaluit, and I called her up. I was like, "Hey, do you want to go?" And she's like, "Yup." She didn't even know where we were
Whatever
going.
you're doing,
She's like, "Yep, I'm going." And I think we went to like Watson Lake and I think Whitehorse or something like that. And then it's just been like.
So have you done like hundreds of courses at this point?
I don't know exactly the number.
Sure.
But
it's not like 6.
No. Yeah. Definitely not even 6 this year. So the first year, like I said, I did a lot of teaching in Delaney and Fort Good Hope and Tulita and Norman Wells. And then I was going to go to the Yukon for a bead hide symposium. And again, networking, I called up a friend of mine and I was like, "Hey, maybe I could teach a class like before or after this symposium." I said, "Who do I talk to in the Yukon?" And so my friend Zena gave me a contact in the Yukon, and I was like, "Hey," and then I kind of went from there. And so they set up I think it was like 3 classes or 2 classes. I can't remember exactly. And then she called me back like about a half hour later. She's like, "Dorathy, our phone's going off the hook. We have to add another class." And it's like sold out, not sold out, but like it filled up like within 10 minutes.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Yeah. So, and then that kind of started the whole Yukon thing. And then I've been going back since I think it was like 2021. 2022, I was there quite a bit. And then last year, because my nanny had to go back to Germany, I wanted to kind of scale back my business and kind of stay closer to home.
Sure.
And then that's why I got the job at where I work full time now.
Yeah.
And now I'm still trying to juggle both of them
Totally.
and my house and my kids. And it's like, well,
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
So where do you get your confidence? Because clearly you have a fair amount of confidence to just kind of travel over the world. And I feel like inserting yourself into the fashion industry is not an easy feat. So what's your secret?
You know what? My mom is a very strong lady. She's a single parent too. She had 6 kids and raised us, in a really good home. And my dad's pretty supportive too. I think that's where I get it from. I think a lot of the stuff that I have is like from like when I was growing up, and like, my mom instilled my parents instilled like really great like work ethic and values and, those kinds of things. Right. And I think that's where I get it from. It's just like, my parents are really great, and they raised some really good kids, I guess.
That's sweet. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 older sisters. And like I said, my sister Linda is an artist in Edmonton. And my other sister Amy, she's super smart. She's a banker. I don't know. Don't ask me anything else. And then I have my sister Connie. And she does a lot of logistics for me in Edmonton, like, with the Canada Post strike and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So she's like, actually this weekend she's going to pick up a bunch of stuff for me, at Marshall's Fabric and meet me at the airport for when I'm have a layover for like an hour.
Just to drop it off.
Just to drop off. Yeah. A little flyby. And then I have 2 younger brothers. And my brother Brendan he lives in Inuvik, and he's like a chef I guess I'd say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my brother John, I think he lives in, I want to say Prince George in BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a place.
I think so.
And what does he do there?
I have no idea.
Living life.
Yeah, he works. I think he's like an office manager or something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so. It's. I only have one brother, so I don't even know what it would be like to have such a large family.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's like the best. I've lived in the Sawtoo for.
What brought you to Norman Wells?
So my ex-husband and I used to own a business here,
Okay.
a contracting company, like a construction or whatever. And so we moved here because there was more work.
Lots of work,
and and then I bought the house in DOT and
Best
then,
neighborhood on the planet, by the way.
Right.
Shout out to DOT.
Right. And yeah, so, and then I've been here since. And like I said, I think he's gone like 9 years now, and I've just been living here ever since, and I love it here. And I think that Norman Wells is like a really great place to like raise your kids, and you know, like again, living in DOT, they have so much freedom, and like it's just, I think that they're going to be, I don't know, they're just, I have such an advantage living here. Like I would hate to, like, even being in the city for a little while is like so hard with the kids or whatever.
Especially if they're used to this kind of freedom.
Yeah, exactly. And then coming home is always great. So, yeah.
That's so cool. So do you got any, like if someone wants to partake in one of your classes, like how do they do that? Or how do they learn from you?
Yeah. So usually I talk to, like the people that usually hire me are like First Nations. So they want their participants like to have priority, right?
Sure.
So they'll like, let's just say, for example, I'm going to Ross River.
Okay.
So all of their participants there are able to come to the class and, you know, sign up and make a parka. And the classes usually last about 3-4 days, depending on how many people we have.
Totally.
And then it usually takes about 3 days to make a parka. So from start to finish,
like learning
to learn how to make it. And so they like, you know, have the patterns, and then we talk about design, and then we cut everything out. And I do a lot of like the like serging and like the stuff behind the scenes type of thing.
Yeah,
like to kind of make it go
the
faster.
final touches or whatever.
And then they're like right down to the end, like when they're hand sewing their fur on, like, yeah, it takes about 3 days.
So do you ever machine sew fur? No, it's always hand sewing.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure you can, but I don't.
Well, it might just be that it. Well, I don't know. The fur might interfere with the sewing machine or something like that. Maybe not.
Yeah, there's like fur machines that you could use, but I don't have one of those yet.
Yeah.
There's actually a program, and I think ITI put this on. When did they put it on? Actually, it was in February, because it was either I went to this program in Yellowknife to learn how to like sew with different furs and like different techniques with a fur machine and all of that stuff, or I go to New York. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to New York. Yeah. What to
So
do.
when you do a course, do you bring like all the sewing machines with you?
So like I said, in the...
That must be why you have a storage unit in the Yukon.
So like I said, in the Yukon, I have like, let's just say 15 sewing machines. Let's just say,
a casual 15 sewing machines.
And then I have all of my materials.
Yes.
And I usually get my materials shipped in a few days before or whatever. And then I actually use like a big U-Haul and like pack everything in, and then like, you know, and then drive to the community and unload. And then they have all of these options to choose from. So I don't just bring a few little bolts of fabric. I have like a lot and a lot of different options. And I have all the cutting tools and like the scissors and the...
So it's actually quite a production.
It is. Yeah,
that's
it is.
So cool.
And so that's what, like, you know, I give them a quote. I'd be like, this is what it is. And then you don't have to worry about anything else. Just like make sure that I have a place to do this and a place to stay and food and whatever. And then I'll do the rest.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Most of the courses you've done has either been in the Sawtoo, in the Yukon, or what, in Alberta?
I haven't done an Alberta course yet. I did, well, it's called Lower Post, but it's in northern BC, but it's like right across the border.
Okay.
So yeah.
You could use the storage unit from the Yukon.
Yeah. But the one I want to do next is actually in Winnipeg. I've reached out to a few people there. One at the WAG, and
what's the WAG?
The Winnipeg Art Museum.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that.
WAG.
I don't know. There's a WAG Art
Gallery.
That's what it is. Yeah, and so I reached out to them, and it would be really cool to do one there because, like, again, I have like 3 models that are in Winnipeg.
Totally.
And so what I'm going to do for design wise is I'm going to make sure that I have everything done and then do a fitting while I'm there.
Oh.
And make sure that everything looks nice and like, fits them properly. Because that's one thing about doing like New York. I went there and then you do a fitting, but then it's like...
Do you have to alter the pieces?
You could, but like I didn't have the time to do it because it was all kind of like, it was all based on like if they could make it in time or not.
Sure.
And so that's why like the last model for the other parka, the last one that I did, it was too big for her. And I was like, oh man, so we need a different model. And so that's kind of,
yeah, because you don't want to display the clothes on someone who doesn't fit right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the parkas, like they look good like on the rack, but like when they're on a model that is all like has hair and makeup done, it just makes it look so much better. And then also when I was in New York, we reached out to Manitoba Mucklucks.
Yeah.
And
I've bought gauntlets from them before.
Yeah. They didn't I wouldn't say partner with me, but they sponsored my show in New York, kind of like with footwear for all of my models. So they sent me like two big boxes to my hotel
of Mucklucks.
And then I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. And then they came out to my show.
Okay,
and
sick.
So these two ladies from Winnipeg or Manitoba came and watched the show, and it was amazing. And they wanted representation on runways, and I wanted footwear for my models, so it was really cool. It was a good partnership.
It's a really cool synergy.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did reach out again with them.
You like send some Mucklucks to Paris.
For Paris, yeah. And so they were like, oh, we're really, really busy right now just because of like, Christmas and Black Friday and whatever. She's like, but I'm gonna talk to my marketing team and we'll get back to you, right?
That's sick.
That would be really cool too. Because like, again, it just kind of makes the whole outfit.
So would that be a kind of company that you could possibly design for?
Yeah, there is an artist market with Manitoba that I am kind of associated with that too. Like I do have like kind of an agreement with them, but I haven't sent them anything just yet because I've just been so busy.
Is it a more recent agreement?
I can't remember exactly when it was, but within the last few months.
Oh, cool.
So if I let's just say, for example, I make like 5 parkas and I'll send them the photos and I'll be like, hey, this is what I have. And they'll be like, okay, well, send it to us. And then they'll sell it on their Facebook on their website. And then send me like a good majority of it. Like usually some people take like a commission. I think they only take like 7%. That's just for postage.
So so they would sell like individual pieces as opposed to you're like, this is the Satu parka or whatever.
Yeah. Well, whatever I wanted to send. So I
totally. But I'm saying it's not like you provide a design and then they manufacture it.
No. I make it and then I send them a photo and they'll be like, okay, yeah, send it.
And is that better for you just because they have a much wider client base than you would just personally?
I think it would be easier if I had the time to do that kind of a production. Like I would, if I were to like, let's just say, for example, make 10 covers and 3 different designs. And then I would have to have the time to be able to do all that and then send them, you know what I mean? Like
totally.
I think I definitely want to be representative with them as well. But like, it's just keeping the inventory and like having the time to make all of that is, I think I just have to sit down and just do it at one point.
Totally.
But because of like my schedule, my work, and then my kids, and then, travel and
makes
stuff like that.
Makes a lot of sense.
It's just a lot right now. So at some point I'm going to be able to do that and then send it to them.
And your work has been able to be flexible in terms of,
oh my God, they're so amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I also work for Arctic Energy Alliance, and like when I went to New York, I was like, hey guys, this came up, and he was like, oh, I'm
a world famous designer.
I was like, do you mind if I, just like work remotely from New York or whatever? And they were like, oh yeah, no problem. So they've been really good. And I think that, like, they're really good with like all kinds of things, right? Like, because I do have 4 kids and, they're very understanding in that sense, right? So, and then with all the other travel stuff, like what happened with the fuel here, totally. I had to go away to work in Wekwiti, and they allowed me to work remotely half days, and then I did a sewing class in Wekwiti last month after the Winnipeg fashion show. And that was really cool. And so, like I said, they're really flexible. They're really great about it. So
how often are you traveling for shows now? Is it like once a month, or is it like once every 6 weeks or whatever? It seems like you're in pretty high demand. So.
Yeah. My schedule right now is like a little Usually it was like once every 3 months.
Okay.
I tried to kind of scale it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But just with like the cost of living and stuff like that, I kind of like, I would like to do a little bit more work.
Certainly.
More of these classes just to kind of keep up, right?
Yeah.
And so the Wekwati one was really, it was really crazy. They have like 100 people there.
Okay.
And we did like 35 parkas and covers in like 6 days. It was crazy. And like 100 people that lived there. And it was like, so I worked from like 12 o'clock to like 9, 10 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
And like I was sewing right to the last minute.
No
like
kidding.
Right to the last minute. I like raced to the airport and got on the plane and left.
That's
and then
so cool.
It was funny because I got a message like, I think like later, like a day later or something like that from a lady from Wati. And she was like, Dorathy, my phone has been going off the hook since you were in Wekwati. Can you come to our community? And I was like, how many people live there? She was like 600. I was like, oh my God.
You need to bring a lot of material.
Oh my God. Okay. So I said, yeah, possibly like I'll send you the information or whatever. And they just approved it. So it looks like I'm going to Wati in the new year.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Like January, February kind of
January,
time?
probably. Yeah. And then I'm hoping to go to Winnipeg in February.
And then when's Paris?
Paris is in March. March 9th is my show. So
maybe we should do a follow-up episode after Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. So March 9th is my show. So I'm probably going to go to Paris a few days before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'll stick around after that, but I definitely want to hop over to Ireland.
Just go say hey.
Yeah, just for a pint.
Just for a pint. Yeah. Oh, you beat me to it.
Yeah, I'd like to go back there. Just, I mean, since you're there, right? And it's so cheap to travel in Europe.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So you do covers, like the shawls, right?
Yeah.
And then parkas and
then I've been doing not ribbon skirts, but just skirts.
Okay.
With pockets.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, everything
Gotta
has
have
to have
pockets. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I think what was I? Oh, like little pants, like these little like they almost look like. Somebody asked me to make her granddaughter a pair of ribbon pants. So she sent me a picture.
Ribbon pants?
So you know what ribbon skirts are?
No.
So they just have like really nice ribbons on the bottom. It's very traditional to like Southern Canada.
Okay.
And so she sent me a photo. I was like, oh yeah, I could try. So I made her a pair. And they turned out really nice.
Okay.
So I made those for her and
so ribbon pants are like a spin on ribbon skirts?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I like they didn't have any ribbon. It just had like rickrack on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're really cute. And I'm trying to do like these like really nice wraparound skirts for like the summertime and stuff like that. Yeah. So.
And is there anything that like you're like intimidated to venture into? Yeah.
Probably more formal dresses and
yeah.
stuff like that. But I would love to learn how to do that, like how to be a dressmaker. I think that would be really
totally
cool. And I definitely want to do not like a master class, but like a pattern making class or like a dressmaker class. But there's a school in New York. It's called Parsons School of Design. I think it's cute, like it's famous. But they have summer courses there, and they even have courses for teenagers.
Okay.
And so when Hope is old enough, I'd like to go there with her and
do a class together.
Because she's so good at sewing now.
That's sick.
Yeah. She actually has an interview with CBC today.
Oh, nice. About her sewing.
About her sewing.
That's so cool.
She sewed her brother a pair of mitts for Christmas. And this lady from CBC reached out to me and she was like, oh, can we talk to you about these mitts? I was like, oh, I didn't do those. That's my daughter. I was like, well,
how did they hear about them? Like that? On Facebook or something? That's so funny.
I know. I was like, she was like, can we talk to you about your mitts?
She's like, Mom, can I go to Paris? And...
Yeah. Actually, I asked them if they wanted to come with me and they're all like, no. And except for the baby. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But we are supposed to go and go back to Europe in the springtime.
Back to Ireland?
Yeah.
That's you're good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love traveling and my kids love traveling too. So it's really good.
Do you find it, is it just stressful or like the whole thing's blissful?
Some parts are stressful, but usually it's pretty good. Like they really like trying new things and eating new foods and like, that kind of stuff. So
I think it's really useful to travel and to kind of be exposed to just different ways of living and different cultures and
different
whatnot.
Cultures for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't want them, I'm not saying like there's any, like obviously like I love living in the North. I love living in Norman Wells, but I want them to see like more, I want them to have those experiences because like they're only little once and I want
Yeah.
them to see all like what's out there. It's not just going to be they're going to live in the north forever. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely not going to.
When I was 9, my parents moved from Toronto to Mexico, and I lived in Mexico for 10 years.
Oh wow.
And
Nice.
it was such a
I got
crazy
this shawl from Mexico.
Oh yeah, look,
Yeah.
it has a Mexican vibe to it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was so, I think, useful to grow up not well, just in a different culture, you know, like it wasn't my culture. It was a culture that I
Yeah.
had to learn about, and then I learned Spanish and everything. And it was really
Nice.
cool. So I think learning how to make anywhere home is a useful tool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, man, I want a course. I want Dorathy to come and do a course for me. How do they reach you?
A lot of people just reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram.
Do you have a website?
I don't yet. I'm not like super tech savvy, and I don't.
We're going to have to solve that one for you.
If there's somebody that could do that for me, that'd be great. A delegation is awesome.
It is awesome.
It is. I'm like, okay. But usually, okay, this is the one thing that actually has gotten me a lot of business and a lot of classes. Is I always post on Facebook on Arctic Sewing Room.
Okay.
And so I'll be like day 1, Ross River, or, you know, whatever. And then I would just post all of the photos and all like the progress of the whole class.
And has that mostly been Facebook that you do that
Yeah,
on? Do
yeah.
you do it on any other platforms?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
not yet.
Facebook is where to find you.
Pretty much, yeah.
And is your page just under your name?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure
Or,
if it was under your business.
well, you could like Willow Crescent Quilting by Dorathy Wright. There is a Facebook page. I don't really put a whole lot on there, but
Sure.
like usually it's just on my own personal one. Or like I said, Arctic Sewing Room. If you go on there and like just like type in my name,
You're like a power user of Arctic Sewing Room.
yeah, I'm
Like,
like,
top contributor.
yeah, pretty much. But like a lot of people like they'll comment and then they'll reach out, and that's how I got a lot of classes from that. Is like
Awesome.
everybody sees like how cool the class is and how I want to not inspiring, but like
Yeah, empowering.
Yeah, like everybody walks away with like a finished product, and they're like, you know, super encouraged and proud of themselves. And like, you know, this one lady, actually the first class I did in the Yukon, this lady walked in and she's like this tall, like skinny lady, and she's real powerful, right? And she's like, I just had to come here. There's no way you could do a parka in 3 days. There's no way. I had to come and try this for myself. I'm like, all right, well, welcome. Like, you know, she was done in 2 days. And she put her parka on. She's like, I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And it's so funny. And then she works for Ta'an.
Okay.
There's an indigenous band there. And then I went back for a bunch of times to teach for her nation or whatever. Yeah. So she's done a lot of classes with me. And she's like learned how to make the covers, and now she's just like sewing away and just like making a whole bunch of stuff.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So you've touched the lives of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Have you like seen your parkas in the wild? Like have you been in an airport and been like, oh, I made that?
Yeah. In the wild. Yes. And yes and no. Like I definitely could tell, like, you know, if like somebody had made something for somebody else, and I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize that one
that's
or
cool.
whatever. Yeah.
That's really cool.
But there was one lady who really, I really like. I never even thought about it. Like, you know, she's from Watson Lake and Ross River, I believe, and she was in one of my classes, and she was like, you know what, I have like arthritis.
Okay.
And I can't really hand sew anymore. It really hurts. And she was like, I'm so happy that I'm learning how to use a sewing machine. And now she's just like making so many things. And it was like, oh man, I'm so happy. And she was like one of the most inspiring ones. Like, I think I could remember, you know, like, and this was a few years ago. And so now, like I said, she's been to a bunch of my classes. She actually drove from Watson Lake to Ross River to take my class.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, like just those type of things, like that really makes me happy that, you know, this is like I want to say like touch so many lives, but like encourage so many more people to like go out and buy a sewing machine, get material, and make things, traditional things for their families, right? So
I think it's really cathartic to create things, and it's with like, you know, industrial manufacturing, whatnot, we're losing it, you know, even just as humans.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to kind of get back to your roots and do those things by hand. Well,
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on. That was really awesome to learn about your whole business and what you have going on. And like, I knew that you were like in and out and like, you know, involved, like, oh, she's involved with fashion. And I was like, what? Dorothy's, was she going to a fashion show in New York? That's so random. But that's, it's cool to kind of understand how it evolved and how it came to be.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I have a lot of supporters, and I think like, you know, I'm so grateful for everybody that has like, you know, supported me thus far and like, you know, continue to, too. And like I said, ITI is like huge help. Like they're so amazing. And you know, my family, I have a lot of support from my family and my friends and my kids. My kids are like, you know, they are, I guess, my inspiration. Like I want to say that because like, you know, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be working so hard. I wouldn't be like trying to do better for, you know, just for them.
Yeah, I was answering some questions for a CBC interview about this podcast today. It's going to happen on the 10th or something like that. I don't really know much about it. But they were asking me what my achievements were. And I was like, honestly, just like raising kids.
Yeah.
Like it's such a core part of my identity at this point.
Yeah.
And well, it's been really wonderful, Dorathy. And thanks for coming on. It was really awesome to talk to you.
It was great.